Rally friends, and welcome to my first kitchen table of the new year. And what a time to talk to you lovely rally friends. Rally Monte Carlo, goodness me. Could we have expected the drama, the competition, the performance, maybe the heartache as well that we saw in Monte Carlo? Well, in some ways we could have. In some ways we could have anticipated that Monte Carlo was going to be dramatic, but I don't think we really could have anticipated the drama that came from the performance of one man in particular, Sebastian Loeb. Now, you know, a lot of you will say, did you expect anything less from Loeb? 9 times world champion, 7 times winner on the Monte Carlo. Of course he was going to be competitive. Of course he was going to be right up there. Well, you know, you can only judge on recent form. You can only make predictions. You can't judge people on their form 10 years ago, 12 years ago. That's just ludicrous. And a lot of people, myself included, had a look at Loeb's form and said, well, you know, last time we saw him here, he was a bit average by Loeb's standards. It was a couple of years ago in the Hyundai, wasn't it? If anything, on the Sunday, he was less than average. He was awful. He was absolutely awful. Yes, he picked up a podium on his last outing in the World Rally Championship on gravel when we were in Turkey. But remember, so many cars went out of that rally. You know, Loeb in the Hyundai was not the dominant Loeb that we saw in the Citroën. Yeah, he picked up a win when he came back with Citroën in Spain. But again, you could argue that win was very much down to circumstances and his brilliant use of tyre choice. Used all his knowledge, all his experience in the Citroën in Spain all those years ago, and he picked up that brilliant win on his return there. But he came to Monte Carlo, and again, yes, I know he just come from Dakar, but it's nothing like driving one of these beasts on tarmac. I know he's done Extreme E. Once again, nothing like the challenges required to drive these incredible cars on tarmac at the limit the way he did. Yeah, I think it was reasonable to have Loeb perhaps as not one of our 2 or 3 favourites for this event. But my goodness me, he proved us wrong. He proved us wrong with one of the greatest drives we have ever seen in the World Rally Championship. He was at one with that car from the opening stage. Now, we have to give credit to M Sport because quite clearly M Sport have built something very, very special there. But Loeb got into that car, he felt at one with it, he felt able to push, to commit, really, you know, from the first stage. And it was incredible to watch. It was quite incredible to watch his pace. And it was incredible to watch how relaxed he was and how much he was enjoying it. That was the other thing. He was very, very much enjoying it. His first time in the Monte Carlo Rally, I think, in anything other than a Citroën. He might have done one years and years ago in something else, a 2-wheel drive or something. But certainly at the top level, his first time at the Monte Carlo Rally in anything other than a Citroën. Brand new team to work for, very limited testing. Don't forget that. He had probably fewer kilometres testing than just about any other driver in a Rally 1 car, maybe bar Katsuta-san, who also struggled a bit for testing time. But Loeb was magnificent. He was truly magnificent out there. And, you know, the debate will rage as to who is the greatest rally driver of all time. You know, you cannot take away from Sébastien Ogier the fact that he has won it with 3 different manufacturers, that in the World Championship. Yes, he's won one less, but with 3 different manufacturers. But will Ogier be able to come back in 10 years' time and still win the Monte Carlo Rally? I don't know. You know, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm torn. I was very much in favour of Ogier at the end of last year. He was very much the man who was right at the top, probably the greatest driver of all time. After this performance from Loeb, he's making a very good case for it, isn't he? And he's not just making a case, let me tell you, for the greatest rally driver of all time. For me, he's making a case, and a very strong case, for the greatest driver of all time. Yes, we've seen some absolutely magnificent drivers from Fangio to Schumacher through the years, but you know, I think Sebastian Loeb and what he's done in the various disciplines, should he go on to win Dakar, and I think there's a chance. I think he'll find it very difficult next year for sure, because I think the Audis will be very quick. But should he go on to win Dakar, I think Loeb will be right up there as one of the greatest drivers of all time. One, maybe the greatest driver of all time. It was just an absolute joy to watch Sebastian Loeb performing the way he was. And do you know what? It was a joy to watch Sebastian Ogier. Ogier accepted his final two-stage problems with a degree of grace and humility. He was annoyed at the time, and you could see that at the stage ends. He was still a bit annoyed when he got to the final media zone, but he was basically saying, I'll come back, we'll give it another go next year, which is absolutely not what his wife wants to hear, I'm sure. But I think we will see Sebastian Ogier back next year. He will want to win Monte Carlo number 9, and he will have every chance of winning Monte Carlo Rally number 9. What I would dearly love to see next year is Mr. Wilson, who has a wonderful relationship with both Ogier and Loeb. I would love to see Mr. Wilson managing to pull some sort of deal together. The two Red Bull M Sport Pumas with the two greatest drivers of all time going head to head in the same car. Oh my goodness me, how great would that be? Listen, it's not going to happen. Not as long as Sebastian Ogier has ties with Toyota and moving forward with Toyota in the hypercar racing and all the rest, all the other projects he might do. And who's to say Ogier might not do Dakar with Toyota at some point? But how good would it be? How good would it be to see those two going head to head on a Monte Carlo rally in the same car, same opportunity? We don't need a fight to sort this one out. We need a competition, and that competition would be Monte Carlo. Oh, anyway, that's getting ahead of myself. I mentioned Malcolm Wilson. There aren't enough words. My vocabulary isn't great enough to describe my admiration and respect for that man. I've always had a huge amount of time for the Wilson family. I remember back on a personal level to when I was rather ill a few years ago, 10 or so years ago. And I remember getting emails during rallies from Malcolm Wilson, just keeping me up to date with what was going on. He absolutely didn't need to do that, but he did, because that's the type of guy he is. And I'll never hear anything said against any of the Wilson family. I think they're a magnificent family. But what Matthew and Malcolm Wilson and Elaine Wilson have done is they've endured some pain over the past 18 months, 2 years. Malcolm has built a tremendous company up in Cumbria, M Sport, one of, if not the best, preparation company in the world. And 18 months ago, he was laying people off, and he's never had to do that. People who have worked with him for many, many years, people who had been with him more or less from the very start, he was having to lay them off, and that hurt. That really did hurt him. And we went up to Dovenby Hall around about that time, and I hope you won't mind me saying it, Malcolm, but he didn't look well. He really didn't look well. It was taking a toll on him. And at the same time, they were working on this project. So don't let anyone fool you. M Sport have been working on this 2022 car for a long time, 2 years minimum, I would say. But they were working on the project. Once rallying got going again, they had to accept, and they had to explain to everyone that was left, look, we're not going to enjoy those wonderful moments where we win rallies in the next 18 months. And quite often, that is the payback for 18, 20-hour days, 6 days, 7 days a week work. And you don't mind putting that work in if you know something's coming back. And it's very difficult when week in, week out, rally in, rally out, you're getting hammered. And they were getting hammered last year. But you know what? You look back at it. And did you hear anyone complaining? No, you did not. Did you hear Greensmith complaining? Did you hear Formeau complaining? Did you hear any of the M Sport drivers complaining? No. They didn't complain. They got on with it because they could see what was going on. They believed what Malcolm Wilson told them, which was, guys, next year's going to be special, but we need to put everything into it. Every spare penny we've got, every spare minute of resource that we've got has to go into this new car. And you can't imagine the level of pressure then to perform and deliver from Malcolm Wilson, from Chris Williams, the chief designer, who I'd have to say, I spoke to him really for the first time, Chris Williams in Monte Carlo, a very unassuming character, a very quietly confident, unassuming character. What a job that team has done. But do you know what? They put their faith in Chris Williams, they put their faith in Malcolm Wilson, and they endured some torrid times at M Sport where, as I say, they were getting hammered. Every rally, hammered. There weren't an awful lot of positives to take away from last year. But we got to Monte Carlo, and they unveiled that car I saw it in the flesh for the first time, and then, okay, I'd seen the pictures of it, and I thought, wow. I saw it in the flesh for the first time, and my jaw dropped. It is just a magnificent looking piece of machinery. And then it got into the stages. Loeb, quick, almost quickest. Greensmith, quick. Fourmeau, quick. Craig Breen, quick-ish. Maybe we wanted Breen to be a little quicker, but he bided his time and built his performance. And you knew from the end of that first stage that all of that hard work, all of those late nights, all of those lost weekends were worth it, because they've done it again. They've done it again, M Sport. How do they do it? Every time there's a new formula, every time there's a new car to be designed, they design one that's a winner. We saw it in 2017, the best car, no question about it. Last car to testing in 2017, fewest kilometres, best car. This time round, first car to testing, arguably the most kilometres, best car out of the box. Doesn't matter which way they go about it, they get it right. You know, when I spoke to Chris Williams, he said we had a design philosophy that we stuck to for this car. And we wanted to prove that that philosophy was correct. Well, they have proven it. They have proven it. There's no question. You ask any driver privately in the service park, which car would they have for Sweden? Every single one of them, if they could have a car, would take that M Sport Puma. It looked so planted, so balanced, so fast, so drivable, so totally drivable. You know, Greensmith winning a stage, light years ahead of his performances last year, and loving it and enjoying it. And you could barely take the smile off his face. The same with Craig Breen. You know, what they were saying about that car really told us about the weapon that they had underneath them. Just the most magnificent debut from M Sport. And it bodes well for the rest of the season. Craig Breen, if he continues in this form, he will get better. He always gets better. And he wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination in Monte Carlo. He'll get quicker. He'll get more competitive. You know, he'll win rallies this year. I have no doubt about that. If he keeps his consistency, if he can score a few points in the power stage, that might be the big one, then he'll be there or thereabouts. And, you know, nobody likes to see other teams struggling, but you look at Hyundai and say, well, you know, it's going to take Hyundai 2 or 3 or 4 events, I think at least, to get rid of their problems. Fingers crossed. Toyota looked good, no question about that. Toyota looked good, but they also have a few issues with their car. Remember, we heard Ogier talking an awful lot about the fact they'd homologated these maps. We'll talk a little bit about all this in a minute. One of my bugbears from the rally, something that we have to, as media, sort out, I think, going forward. But we talk about maps and regen and boost and torque and kilojoules and kilocalories and kilowatts and horsepower. I'm confused. I'm going to talk about it now. No, I'm not. I'm going to hold that thought for a second, because we're talking about M Sport and Craig Breen. Breen will know he's got a chance this year. Breen will know he's got a very, very good chance. So, yeah, magnificent job, M Sport. Well done to everyone there. Look forward very much to seeing what happens in Sweden. By the way, Sweden will be a totally different challenge. You know, we could be going down as far as minus 30 degrees. Good work by everyone at Compact Dynamics. They had niggling issues, nothing too dramatic. They had niggling issues over the course of the weekend. 11 cars left for the first stage. In the final media zone, there were 8 cars. The 3 others had retired for crashes, or in Oliver Solberg's case, fumes in the car. Not because of problems with the powertrain, with the hybrid boost. I think they did a good job. I think they did a really good job in getting that system up and working and reliable. Different challenge when we get to Sweden. As we all know, batteries, it's been the bane of my life in Sweden. When I was doing the radio, all our kit was powered by just usual AA batteries, sometimes the 9-volt batteries, and my goodness me, you needed a boot full of them to get through Rally Sweden. You just sucked the life, the cold sucked the life out the batteries. What will the effect be on batteries when we get, and the hybrid boost, when we get to Sweden? Well, we'll have to find out. I'm pretty confident, though, that it's nothing new, it's nothing unexpected. Pretty confident that we won't have too many problems. And as the season goes on, you will talk less and less about issues related to the hybrid system. Good job, Compact Dynamics. Let's talk a little bit about Hyundai. I don't really know where to start. It was a disaster. And, if you listen to our Spin the Rally pod on Dirtfish, you'll know that I voiced concerns before the rally about going into an event as important as this without a defined, strong leader. Now, that is absolutely no reflection whatsoever on Julien Moncey, who was, if you like, the acting team boss in Monte Carlo. He's a lovely guy. I like him an awful lot. He talks a lot of sense. He talks very, very well indeed. He was the drivetrain manager at Hyundai. He's been promoted to this temporary position. But you know what? It's a temporary position. Anyone with temporary or deputy or whatever it might be you want to put in front of the title, team boss or team principal, it's difficult. It's difficult. You, as a team boss, want to know that ultimately you take responsibility for everything. And someone needed to be in charge there. I don't know, to be totally honest with you, whether it would have changed things dramatically. I don't think it would have. But, the Oliver Solberg situation, perplexing beyond belief that a car can go out 4 days in a row with a problem that they couldn't resolve. And a dangerous one at that, a really dangerous one. Fumes leaking into the car for 2 stages, fit young men in the cockpit, not too bad a problem. But what happens with this inhalation of these noxious substances is that there's an accumulative effect. And if you go day 1, day 2, day 3, and then ultimately day 4, breathing in these fumes, your body's not expelling it. It's just building up and building up and building up. And it can be a terribly dangerous situation. And I do not blame Oliver Solberg one little bit for pulling out. What I would say is I think someone should have had the nuts to withdraw him at Hyundai. They should not have let him go out. As soon as he reported fumes are still coming into the car on that final day, they should have stopped him. They should have stopped him straight away because it's just bonkers. It's just absolutely bonkers. Now, I understand Thierry Neuville's frustrations. Thierry Neuville has fought tooth and nail over the years for that team. And, Andrea Adamo, the ex-boss, who I caught up with on Monday, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I think Adamo should be going shortly. Adamo said many times over the years that they only got results on certain rallies because the drivers over-delivered. They had a very average car at times. They had brilliant drivers. And leading the way was nearly always Thierry Neuville. And he put everything on the line many, many times. He has put everything on the line. He did the same in Monte Carlo. He drove through a stage with there were problems to start off with. I think it was a Saturday afternoon's loop. Saturday morning he had issues, some issues. Then he had an issue with the front right damper. It popped through the top mount. He repaired it. He got to the end. He battled on and he voiced his frustrations at the end of the rally that Oliver Solberg had pulled out. I understand his frustrations, but I think he got it wrong. I think you can understand where he was coming from, but Oliver Solberg should never have been put in that situation. Never have been put in that situation. Number one, they should never have taken so long to find where the problem is. And by all accounts, they never found it during Monte Carlo. They will find it before Sweden, but they never found where the leak, what was leaking and where it was leaking, how this noxious fume was getting into the car. These noxious fumes were getting into the car. It should never have happened. In some ways, if I was Neuville, I would be directing my frustrations not at young Oliver Solberg, but perhaps at Tanak. Yes, Tanak endured issues during the weekend, but ultimately, Tanak made a mistake. Tanak made a mistake when he was fighting for nothing on snow and ice, and he piled it into that rock face. So should Neuville's frustrations perhaps have been pointed in another direction? I think maybe they should have been. Tanak for me is, Hyundai is a worry. Hyundai is a worry. Listen, make no mistake, they'll work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day to try and resolve the reliability issues, the performance issues that they have in that car. But there's only so much you can do. There's reliability you can build into the parts, you can change setups, but that car is homologated. And my understanding is we don't have the same number of jokers that they can apply to changing homologation parts this year. If there's a fundamental mistake with that car, and I'm not saying there is, it's very possible that it is just fine-tuning and tweaking that maybe a lack of testing time has forced upon them. But if there is a fundamental issue, they're stuffed. I don't think they are stuffed, and I hope and I pray and I keep everything crossed that they're not, because the frustration with Neuville was evident. The discomfort of Solberg was evident. And the frustration of Tanak was enormously evident. I felt a little bit sorry for the official, what is he? I suppose he's a commentator who was interviewing Neuville at the end, Tanak at the end of the event when Tanak had crashed out. Tanak gave him the Adamo treatment. Tanak has learned from Adamo how to deal with the press. With Adamo, you never went in to an interview with Adamo without thinking very hard about the questions you were going to ask and what you wanted to get out of him. That has to be the same situation now with Tanak. Tanak was difficult after the rally, difficult to talk to, but he was asked some silly questions. But he's not happy. This was the great new start for Tanak and Hyundai. It's been a torrid 2 years, torrid for him and Hyundai. I remember he came into that team as world champion, came into that team as the invincible Tanak. He had an aura about him. He was almost invincible. He just looked at people and he was half a second up in the stage. He was that good, he was that confident, he was that full. It wasn't an arrogance, but it was just a self-belief from Tanak. How long can that last? I'd suggest it can't. It can't, that self-belief and that confidence, because he just keeps getting knocked down. Not always his fault. Monte Carlo was his fault, but he was battling that car. But I don't know. Tanak is a way better driver than we've seen in the last 2 years. And I fear that if they don't sort that car out very, very quickly indeed, a disgruntled Tanak will be a very difficult man to manage. That again is where Hyundai have to appoint before Sweden their new boss. Whether that be Monse in a full-time capacity or whether that be someone else, they have to appoint a boss before Sweden to get the best out of their drivers. It's a worrying situation, it really is. So, a couple of things I was going to talk about. A couple of further things now we've talked. Toyota, don't worry too much about Toyota. Seeing as I've talked about the other two teams. Toyota are there or thereabouts, as you would expect. One or two small issues that Ogier talked about in terms of homologating these maps that they can choose from, the various different maps. Nothing too major. Yeah, we saw Kalle Rovanperä with a problem after shakedown. We saw Rovanperä taking a while to adapt to the new car. Didn't suit his driving style. Took him a little while just to get the car set up right, but he looked good come the end of the rally. He won stages. He will be a challenger, without doubt, for the championship this year. Leads the de facto championship. Take Ogier, take Loeb out of it, he leads the way. Penalised by being first on the road, potentially, in Sweden. We'll have to wait and see. But Toyota looked good, and with Elfyn Evans, who looked really quick, he looked comfortable, really comfortable with the car. Difficult to work out, Elfyn. He doesn't say an awful lot at stage ends, he doesn't say an awful lot in media zones, but he looked comfortable with that car. Him, obviously, young Rovanperä, and then Ogier, when he comes back, will win more rallies. Esa-Pekka Lappi will be there or thereabouts, no question about that. Will the car be good enough to beat the Ford? I don't know. I really don't know. Will the drivers be good enough to beat the Ford drivers? That is where things will even out. Performance of the Ford, I think, right now, and possibly for the rest of the season, will be above anything else, including, obviously, Toyota. The performance of the Toyota drivers, and you have to say this, and it's no disrespect to Craig or to Gus or to Adrian, you look at, obviously, Rovanperä, you look at Elfyn Evans, their performance is just that little bit above, perhaps, the M Sport drivers. So what happens? Performance of the cars, performance of the drivers, it balances out. I think it balances out beautifully and will give us some incredible battles as the year goes on. Fingers crossed, Hyundai bring themselves back up to that level. They're a fair way short of it just now. So I really just wanted to say a little bit about the hybrids and how we as the media talk about them. And we had this chat with the IMATI, David Evans and myself, on Sunday morning. We're overcomplicating the situation, massively overcomplicating it. Said it earlier, we talk about regen, we talk about maps, we talk about boost, we talk about kilowatt hours, we talk about horsepower, we talk about kilojoules, we talk about kilowatts, we talk about all sorts of things which confuse people. We have to simplify it. This is a boost which gives them one hell of a thrill when it's there, as Ogier said, for a second or two, and then it's gone. But, there's horsepower there, 500 odd horsepower, and it's available at certain times. I find the whole thing terribly confusing. If there's one criticism of the wonderful All Live coverage, it's that the graphics just confuse the hell out of me. I spent the whole weekend trying to work out those graphics, and I still don't really understand them. Genuinely, I don't understand them. Slightly confused by one or two people talking about things that I didn't understand as well. We need to simplify it because, you know, we're not just talking to die-hard rally fans. You know, we've got a great new era ahead of us in rallying. We need to bring new people into the sport, and to bring new people into the sport, we've got to keep it simple. It is complicated. It always has been a complex sport. Let's not overcomplicate it, folks. Let's find a way of talking about these magnificent cars, this magnificent power and performance that they've got, in a way that people understand. Our job is to inform and to entertain. Our job as commentators, as interviewers, as writers, is not to confuse the audience. Really, it's not. We need to bear that in mind. Now, last point, Andrea Adamo. Do you know, it was lovely to see him. I spent 3 or 4 hours with him on Monday after Monte Carlo myself, and again David Evans. And as entertaining as ever. As entertaining as ever. Now, Andrea right now isn't working. He's not got a job. And maybe one day Andrea will feel that he wants to talk about that. But, you know, he doesn't just now, so that's fine. We won't talk about it. But what I would say is there's a position available in rallying, which I think has got Andrea Adamo's name all over it. This rallies director position, the one that Yves Maton had. Why is Adamo perfect for this job? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he's a passionate rally man. He is a clear thinker and a clear talker. He has one thing that he's focused on, and he's almost blinkered about it, and that's rallying. He has no outside interests to confuse the situations, no outside interests to muddy the waters or to distract him from the job in hand. He has the respect of everyone in the service park. He talks everyone's language. He has the energy to do this job properly. I can't think of anyone that's available just now that is better placed to do that job of rallies director than Andrea Adamo. Do you know what? If we don't take him, someone else will. Someone else will. Formula One will take him. Some other high-profile job will come and will take Andrea Adamo. We cannot afford to lose these characters, this experience, you know, the wealth. And we're not just talking, 6 years with Hyundai. You know, he has a wealth of experience. It goes back to his teens in motorsport and rallying. We can't afford to lose it. We can't afford to lose it. Adamo is a special person. Yes, he's a very good friend of mine, but he's a special person. And he could do a magnificent job for the FIA. As we know, there's a rally man in charge of the FIA who talks rallying people's language. Him and Adamo, when I say him, I'm very sorry, President Ben Sulayem and Andrea Adamo talk the same language. And I would love them to get into a room and discuss what's right for rallying and get Mr. Adamo back involved at the very highest level in rallying before too long, before someone else snaps him up. So there we are, folks. That's my thought. Let me know what you think. You can comment underneath this video. If you want to get in touch with me at Dirtfish, it's at Dirtfish Rally on Twitter. If you're watching this on the Dirtfish channel and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do subscribe. Share the video if you've enjoyed the content as well. There will be more, I keep saying this, but I genuinely mean it this time. There will be more kitchen tables as the year goes on. By the way, eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed the Pirelli cap in the background. It's not just there for decoration. It's there to remind me to say a very big happy birthday to all our friends at Pirelli. It's 150 years that Pirelli have been around, and that is quite some achievement. It really is. So a very happy birthday to everyone at Pirelli. Folks, thank you very much for joining me at my kitchen table.